Okay, I'm Fran Smith, and I'm teaching a course this semester for George Washington on report writing in career assessment and vocational evaluation. And I'm here at the January IDEA partnership meeting in Washington, D.C., and I had the chance to talk with June Gothberg from Michigan. And while we were chatting, found out that she's been practicing vocational evaluation in her past. So she's going to share with us a few of her insights with the practice and tell us a little bit more. So if you could, June, tell us a little bit about who you are and what's your current employment situation now.
Okay. I'm June Gothberg, and I am with the National Secondary Transition Technical Assistance Center. We provide states and local education agencies with technical assistance to improve transition education and services for students with disabilities. My home is at Western Michigan University, which is in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Okay, great. Now, you had mentioned to me before that you had practiced. Can you tell us a little bit about when you practiced as a vocational evaluator and a little bit about what you did?
Sure. I was a classroom teacher for 10 years and went back to school for an evaluation degree and took a role at our local Goodwill and was their vocational evaluator. That was from the years 2005 to 2007.
Mm-hmm. Who were your primary clients in that facility?
Well, we had several different clients. My primary roles in vocational evaluation, I conducted comprehensive batteries of tests for our Michigan Rehabilitation Services for their clients. I also did on-the-job evaluations, OJEs, for them. And then I had a contract also with the state of Michigan to go into the prisons about a month or 2 months prior to prisoners being released and doing that comprehensive battery of tests with them as well.
When you did the comprehensive assessments, what kinds of things did you use to assess your client's potential?
I used several over-the-counter type products, everything from the work keys pieces from ACT. I used the CAPS, COPS, and COPES in some situations. One of those was very amenable to students that have a little more difficulty reading. I used the RAT assessments for reading, spelling, and math. I had a PTI assessment to assess oral directions. I also tested manual dexterity on several different pieces of equipment. And I also I kind of had a little specialty here in the state. I was able to conduct task analysis for jobs, and so I'd go out and I'd task analyze what those jobs were prior to a client being put on an OJE, and then go back and evaluate them on how they did those individual tasks.
Fabulous. So what were some of the outcomes and challenges in that process that you found?
Well, and for me, I think, because we discussed this, one of the issues and challenges for me was I never did see what happened to those formal reports. So I never knew if they took my recommendations from the evaluations, what happened to the clients. I always had a meeting with the client, an interview with the client, to go over those assessments before I turned in the formal report, make sure I hadn't missed anything, fill in the gaps. That was very rewarding, and I got to hear some of what their hopes and dreams were, but then I never knew if any of them got fulfilled.
I'm just curious, typically how long did you find your reports to be?
Well, now I had a couple situations, so it depended on how much detail they wanted. I had one client, or one group that wanted a one-page report, which provided its own challenges, trying to debrief everything that you learned from that client. And then I had the state of Michigan, they really wanted more like a 20-page report.
Wow.
So those had to be very detailed, and I was able, there was parts of that I liked a lot better because I had a big recommendation section.
Did you have, because your reports were longer, did you have a template that you used, that you designed, or did you write everything different for every client you worked with?
No, I created a template pretty much for myself from the get-go. It wasn't given to me. I just, thought out what were those elements I wanted in these reports, and then I created the templates to fill them in. Had to make some adjustments here and there when you had clients with specialized individual needs that you were assessing, but for the most part, they had an introduction and a section where I talked about what the clients were hoping for, what their hopes and dreams were, and then talked about the assessments and then gave recommendations.
And were your reports delivered in print or in digital form, or both?
For the most part, they were in print.
Okay.
They had to go through a second level before they were sent off because I was a contracted person. I wasn't an employee of the rehab services.
Right.
So they were always vetted.
And when you finished your report and shared those recommendations, were you typically in a conference with?
Just put them in the mail and send them off.
Oh, okay.
So I really didn't get to see reactions to them.
Wow. So in all, in those years that you worked as an evaluation, did you find that vocational evaluation was a needed service? Do you think it's something that's important in the lives of individuals who need that?
I do, and in my current work, I'm working with the K-12 education system, and I believe that vocational evaluators have a voice at that table, because in the K-12 system, they're conducting transition assessments and career assessments, and I feel like the field of vocational evaluation gets it, that they need to have a picture of the whole person, and schools are lacking in that area, and I think you could fill a gap.
Well, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome.